Greetings Pilgrims, I'm Doug. This is Camino 2020, a channel series dedicated to preparing for the Camino de Santiago in Spain. Today I want to talk to you about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, that is photography on the Camino. Let's get to it. There are a number of options for doing photography on the Camino, and while I don't want to turn this channel into a photography gear review, I did want to go over some of the main decisions that I personally have made. I basically, in my research, narrowed it down to 3 really solid options for myself that I would like to share with you, because even if you don't have the exact same models or things that you're considering, the things that go into this decision should still help you out. Now, the first option is to simply use the phone. Phones are great for a number of reasons. Number one, as far as packing is concerned, this is essentially a no-weight, no-cost option, because if you're going to bring your phone anyway, then you're not adding any expense or any weight to the pack. Now, me personally, I'm a pretty cheap guy when it comes to phones. I tend to kind of run through these. So I think I paid like 80 bucks for this. This is a Samsung J7 Pro, whatever, Walmart phone. Things I like about it, number one, of course, you've got the big display. I mean, there's not really going to be any dedicated camera on the market that's got a 5.5-inch or larger display on it. And, of course, because of the dual cam action, it makes the selfie a lot easier, because you can actually see what you're shooting when you want to be in the picture. Another thing I like about the phones is that the batteries are pretty long lasting. Even when I'm doing a lot of pictures and a lot of videos, I can usually eke out the whole day with one of these if I don't have the GPS and other things on. So that means a lot less recharging. And of course, when it is time to recharge, phones are pretty simple. You don't have to pull the battery, you don't have to carry an extra charger around with you. You just plug in your USB cable and bam, phone is off and running. Now let's talk about some downsides to the phone. Depending on the quality of your phone, you may have better or less luck when it comes to image quality, but this one right here is an 8 megapixel camera. And 8 megapixels is fine if you're just sort of shooting for the screen. If you're going to look at your pictures on here, if you're going to look at them on your computer, 8 megs is a good looking shot. The problem comes when you start to blow it up bigger. If you're going to actually try to print these pictures, if you want to watch them on YouTube on a 5.5-foot wide TV screen and not just your 5.5-inch screen on your phone, every little flaw is going to show up big time. Now, one thing to note about the phone is that although you have 8 megapixels, you've got a very teeny tiny lens. I mean, I can barely even see the hole on this thing. I mean, it can't be more than a couple of millimeters wide. And those 8 megapixels are being loaded on a sensor that is probably about the size of my pinky fingernail. According to the specs that I read, it's about a 1/4-inch sensor. And I'll put a link in the description about why that matters. I don't want to get into all the technical details here, but basically, smaller sensor, worse picture. When it comes to shooting video, this phone does not have an image stabilizer. And I don't care how careful you are with your 2-hand grip and turning your whole body and trying to do whatever, you're going to get a little bit of shake. You're going to get a little bit of bounce. And again, while those things don't matter a whole lot when you're just looking at a small screen, sometimes they just become unwatchable. I recently shot some video up on top of Dewey Point in Yosemite. I was holding as still as I could, trying to pan and show the entire valley. And oh my gosh, the video is just, it's horrendous. Another issue with the phone's image quality is that it does not have an optical zoom lens. Zooming means the lens goes out into a telephoto mode and brings the light to the sensor in such a way that distant objects appear closer, but it doesn't affect the image quality. On a phone, you don't have a zoom lens. All you have is a fixed lens, and it allows you to blow up the picture before you take it. So really, you could just take any shots you want to and blow them up later, but as we all know, those do not turn out very well. And finally, low light sensitivity is going to be an issue with a lens this small and a sensor that small. It needs a lot of light to look good. So for distant objects or for poorly lit situations, the phone images are going to suffer. The sound on these is also usually not stereo. Phones are typically not natively water resistant, much less waterproof, so you've got the fear of damage happening all the time if they get wet. So there are some downsides to the phone, although it is very lightweight. This comes in at 6 ounces. You've got cheap accessories, which I'll go through in another video, and super convenient for a number of different reasons. However, your image quality is going to be very low. So when I started considering a Camino camera, I thought, well, I would like something better than my phone. I want to bring back some good pictures from this Camino. I'm only going to probably do it once. And knowing my memory, I'm probably only going to really have good, solid memories of things that I capture on video or picture. So I want them to be good. I want to be able to watch these videos on a big screen and enjoy them. So I started looking into the pocket-sized cameras that were tough. And without question, the market leader right now is the Olympus TG series. Full disclosure, this is actually a piece of paper that I printed. Can you do a camera review on a piece of paper? Let's find out. Now the specs on this little guy are pretty impressive. First of all, 100% waterproof. You can actually take this camera underwater and continue to use it. It's also drop proof, shock proof, snow proof, mud proof, dust proof, dirt proof. If there's an element out there other than fire, this thing should be able to withstand it. So that gives me a lot of confidence in the camera's ability to hold up under any conditions, even if I'm not necessarily using it underwater. Alright, spec-wise, this camera shoots a 12 megapixel picture. It's got a 4 times optical zoom, which means that when you hit zoom, the lens actually moves and the image quality does not deteriorate. It's got a nice 2.0 lens, which means it lets a lot of light in. Like the phone, it shoots the standard 1920 by 1080p video, which is great for high definition. This one can bump up to 4K though, if you don't mind burning through your memory card and your batteries a lot faster. This camera has its own image stabilizer built in. Now, it is a digital image stabilizer, which means that it's actually kind of monkeying with the picture to make it appear smooth. It's not something that's built into the camera body or the lens itself. It shoots in stereo, not just mono, and it only weighs in at a little under 9 ounces. So it's a nice lightweight possibility for your kit. Okay, some of the bad news. This little guy is pretty expensive. The TG5 comes in at about $350. If you want to go to the TG6, you're looking at $450 for what is essentially a tiny point-and-shoot camera. So you're paying a lot for the tough aspect of this camera. One of the places where that image quality is going to suffer in that price range is in the sensor. We talked about the fact that a phone has about a 1/4 inch sensor. The Olympus only bumps up to a 1/3, which, as you can see, is just barely even noticeably bigger. Now, it does have more megapixels as well, so the camera is going to shoot better pictures, but whether that $450 is really actually going to increase your image quality is somewhat questionable in well-lit, normal distance situations. Now, when it comes to distance, when it comes to low light, the Olympus TG is going to smoke a phone. And I know this because on my recent trip to Yosemite with some buddies, one of them had the TG5. I was able to take it out in the field, take pictures. I'm going to show you some comparisons on here. And you'll see that in full light situations, my cheap Walmart phone and the rather expensive Olympus TG series performed pretty equivalently. They're pretty difficult to tell the difference between. However, as soon as we required some zoom, as soon as we required some low light shooting, the Olympus clearly outperformed the phone. And last but not least, it needs to be pointed out that selfies are going to be a bit difficult with this camera because the 3-inch screen on the back does not pop out, does not rotate, and so when you're holding it out for a selfie, you can't be sure what you're shooting. Now, it's got a wide enough angle lens that you're going to be in the picture. You're probably not going to cut off anything important, but if you got a buddy with you, you got a couple friends, you want to make sure Half Dome's showing up in the background or the cathedral at Santiago, you're just not going to know what the picture looks like until you take it. That can get frustrating, eat through batteries, annoy your friends who are now not smiling because it's like the 15th time you've tried to get the perfect shot. The very last thing I want to point out about the Olympus is that the battery life is not super impressive. When we were out on the trail, my buddy that had this camera never made it through more than about half a day before he had to swap the battery out. Alright, well, you have probably noticed a big image quality jump from the previous segments of this video to now, and that is because I have had to switch to my phone in order to talk about my third option for the Camino, which is going with the full-size camera. This is your single lens reflex SLR mirrorless style camera. This particular one is the Panasonic Lumix, that's their camera division, D85. Been very, very happy with it, but will it work for the Camino? First of all, price. Obviously, something like this is going to run the dollars up quite a bit higher than a cheap Walmart phone or even a fairly expensive point-and-shoot camera. This comes in at about twice as much. Right now on Amazon, you get this for about $700 with the standard lens. Now, that standard lens is a 12 to 60 millimeter, which means that it's essentially a 5x zoom lens. And of course, it's a big barrel instead of a little pinhole, so light handling capabilities are pretty solid. This is a 16 megapixel camera, which puts it a lot higher than the Olympus and a lot higher than the phone. But more importantly, as you probably can guess by now, the sensor is quite a bit bigger. This is a 4/3 sensor, which means it's an 1.3 inch size. So all the light that is coming through this lens is hitting 16 megapixels on a nice large sensor. For video, it shoots, again, the standard 1920 by 1080p video. It can also do 4K, again, if you're willing to sacrifice some battery life and card memory. Continuing with the video specs, this camera also has an image stabilizer. However, it is built in to the camera itself. Kind of bouncing around a little bit. This is an optical image stabilizer, which means that as the camera moves, it is physically keeping the picture still and not just digitally enhancing it. That means you don't get any digital cutoff around the edges, and it is quite a bit smoother. So for video, this is a very good choice. This also shoots in stereo and will take an external microphone. The native microphone is okay. Although it has a 3-inch display like the Olympus, this one flips around. So if you want to do some selfie shots, it's actually possible because you can see what you're shooting even when the camera is pointed at you. Finally, this particular camera is actually weather resistant, which is very unusual for a full-size camera. Now, the manufacturer goes to great lengths to point out that this is not a waterproof camera. It's not even a weatherproof camera, it's just resistant. And what that means is that all of the openings to the body have been sealed. How much that is actually going to protect the camera in case of rain or dust or snow or dropping, they don't say. All right, so what's not to love? Okay, well, there are some downsides. I already mentioned the price. It's going to be a very, very expensive addition to your kit if you don't already have something like this already, or if you're not going to use it for something else after the Camino. Further, the battery is not great. Like the Olympus, you're going to maybe get a half day out of it. Further, in this model at least, the battery cannot be charged through the body of the camera. So you not only have to drop the battery, but you've got to carry a charger with you in order to charge it at an outlet. And that means that if a half day's worth of battery isn't going to cut it for you, you've got to bring 2 batteries. And unless you want to set an alarm, wake up in the middle of the night and swap batteries out on your charger, you're also going to have to carry 2 chargers. You are probably not going to have a big power strip with you with room for all of these battery chargers and your phone and your headlamp and whatever else you've got going on. So if you've got this taking up quite a bit of real estate, you either need to bring extra equipment in addition to the extra equipment to take care of the extra equipment, or you might find yourself with a big paperweight. And speaking of weight, this baby comes in at 26 ounces. And of course, it is bulky. I mean, this thing is the size of a grapefruit. It doesn't pack well. it doesn't ride well. Now, I'm going to go over accessories in another video and show you some ideas for how a camera like this could be carried comfortably while hiking. But you've got to keep in mind that means more equipment, more expense, more weight, all of this for the picture quality. So, which camera option am I bringing on the Camino? I don't know. I think I have ruled out the Olympus. As much as I love that little camera, for me right now, dropping another $300 to $450 on my Camino is kind of out of the question. The quality just isn't there for me when it comes to adding to my kit. I've already got a high quality image camera. I've already got a very convenient, small, lightweight camera that does an adequate job in many situations. Dropping $300 to $450 for something that sits in between these two is just a bit much for me right now. So these are all good options for different reasons. You're going to have to think through those yourself. I am still thinking through them myself. If this video has helped you, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell notification so that you get updates when new videos drop. And if you can give the video a like, I would appreciate that as well. My name is Doug. This is Camino 2020. Buen Camino, pilgrims.